Hi there, hello, and happy post-Halloween. It's November. It's time to go over a very sparsely populated October at the movies. It gets a little hairy because I only saw 3 movies this October. If I take, whatchamacallit, I used one October movie in September because it had come out the last Friday in September and I'd seen it on October 1st. Anyway, I saw, other than that one that I put at the end of September, I only saw 3 movies this October in the theater. My movie review will come in 2 parts this time. This part is about the theater. Here we go. October at the movies. I saw A Haunting in Venice first, then Exorcist Believer, then Five Nights. That's the order in which I saw the movies of October. Five Nights at Freddy's, of course, but you know that. If I say Five Nights, I mean Five Nights at Freddy's. The order in which I was anticipating the movies of October. At number 3, The Exorcist Believer. I had not even seen the original Exorcist. I walked into this one out of sheer morbid curiosity. Number 2, Five Nights at Freddy's. I knew that Five Nights had a cult following. It was such a cult following that I could have sworn that it had been a movie before. Not so. And at number 1, in order of anticipation, A Haunting in Venice. The trailers did a remarkable job of selling this as an entertaining movie. More on that in a minute. Now, in order of actual theatrical enjoyment. Number 3, Haunting. A Haunting in Venice was tied in with Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile. It's one of those classic examples of the theatrical trailer making a movie look about 10 times better than it actually is. So the trailer did its job. I was hooked. I was anticipating A Haunting in Venice the most out of any movie in October. Then I sat and watched it in the theater. Probably the closest thing that I came to getting my nap in that theater this month. It was entertaining enough, but just not quite what we were being sold. In fact, it falls smack dab in between the Murder on the Orient Express, that was actually almost enjoyable, and Death on the Nile, which was enough to bore me to, well, death. A Haunting in Venice falls somewhere in between. I know, somewhere in between almost but not quite entertaining and absolutely boring. Number 2. Order of enjoyment. Number 2. The Exorcist. The Exorcist Believer. Again, I didn't see the original Exorcist, but this film isn't all that deep. You understand. If you know what an exorcism is, you understand The Exorcist. That plus any suspense and terror was severely toned down by the fact that the theater had the Eras tour playing upstairs. And I know that this was going on because throughout the entire movie you could hear the din of Taylor's concert. To the point where my first thought was, okay, is someone in here actually playing music on their phone during a movie? It's one thing to text or to do social media during a movie as long as the sound and notifications are turned off. If you're in the back row and you're on your phone, who has to be the wiser? As long as the sound is off. It's completely different to be playing music on your phone, obviously, during a movie. Do that at home. Back to The Exorcist, believe it. 5 minutes later, I realized that every single song we were hearing was Taylor Swift. And I realized who the actual culprit was. The Exorcist Believer, treated on its own, I hadn't seen the original. The Exorcist Believer was a fine movie. It was just as suspenseful as it had to be. And the film they were playing upstairs needed to calm down. It was being too loud. Number 1. Five Nights. Five Nights at Freddy's. This has such a cult following that I could have sworn that it had been a movie, or a book, or a Netflix series. Little did I know, it was actually an indie video game that had just gained so much traction that it became a cult following. That it earned itself a cult following. That's great. An indie video game. Now, it's a video game movie on top of being what is supposed to be a suspense horror movie. And yeah, it's Five Nights at Freddy's. There's quite a bit of gore, quite a bit of bloodshed in it. But it's all just so cartoonishly done. Even the scenes of gore, even the scenes of injury are just so cartoonishly done that it's entertaining. Any actual suspense or feeling of terror, the movie always stops right at the line and walks it back to something mildly amusing and entertaining. I appreciated that. I actually enjoyed Five Nights at Freddy's more than any other October movie. More than any other movie I saw this October. Now you're probably wondering, movies in October. Killers of the Flower Moon came out in October. It doesn't arrive here until Friday. That makes it a November movie for me. That is going to, spoiler alert, that's what's going to lead off the movies of November. I'm leading it off with Killers of the Flower Moon. Alright, this has been part 1 of the movie review of October. I'll see you soon.